I knew the night was going to be bad the moment the room went quiet. Too quiet. The kind where every conversation collapses at once because something toxic is about to surface. My wife had that look again. Stiff shoulders, wine glass clutched too tight, eyes scanning the room like she was searching for the perfect place to land a blow. Her family watched her with that mix of worry and exhaustion they saved specifically for moments when she felt the need to perform. I had only opened my mouth to ask if she wanted some water when she spun around and shouted, loud enough for her voice to slice through the entire dining room. "You ruined my life!" The room froze. Forks paused midair. Plates clattered. Someone dropped their drink. Her mother gasped as if she'd caught the tail end of a scandal. And my wife, stood there shaking, glaring at me like I'd committed some unforgivable crime she'd been rehearsing in her head for weeks. "You think you're so perfect," she continued, her voice trembling with dramatic rage. "But you're the problem. You've always been the problem. I'm done covering for you. I'm done pretending everything's fine." I stared at her, stunned into stillness. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Mostly I was confused, because we'd argued, sure, but nothing close to the volcanic chaos she was unleashing now. And certainly nothing that deserved this spectacle. People were staring at me like I'd kicked her puppy and then laughed about it. My wife basked in the attention, chest rising and falling in exaggerated breaths, waiting for me to collapse or apologize or beg. Whatever reaction she thought would make her look even more like the tragic victim she believed herself to be. I reached for my coat in silence. There was nothing to say to her. Not here. Not in front of people who already worshipped her dramatics. The humiliation crawled under my skin, but I forced my expression calm, controlled, cold. And that's when it happened. As I walked past the long dining table, my wife's best friend, Mara, brushed my arm lightly with her fingers. Barely a touch, but electric enough that it stopped me in my tracks. She moved close enough that her breath warmed the side of my neck, and her perfume wrapped around me like something secretive and intimate. Her lips drifted near my ear as she whispered, slow and low, "Don't leave yet. Not until you hear what I found." The tone wasn't dramatic. It wasn't comforting. It was sharp, urgent, almost dangerous. I turned my head slightly, and for a moment, our eyes locked. She wasn't angry. She wasn't shocked. She looked conflicted, angry at someone, but not at me. Her fingers lingered for only half a second longer before she stepped back, her expression smoothing into something unreadable. She turned toward my wife, pretending to comfort her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder as if she were soothing a wounded animal. But once, just once, she glanced at me over her shoulder. It wasn't a casual glance. It wasn't sympathy. It was a signal. And I understood exactly what it meant. There was a story behind this blow-up, and Mara knew it. I sat back down slowly, ignoring the pulse beating hard in my throat. My wife kept performing her devastation for anyone who would watch, but my mind wasn't on her anymore. It was on the whisper still burning against my ear. Mara had always been polite with me, warm enough to be friendly, distant enough to be loyal to her friend, but never like that. Never urgent. Never intimate. When dessert was served and the family tried to pace the night back together with stiff smiles, Mara moved around the room with quiet calculation, avoiding me just enough to keep the attention off us, but close enough that her presence buzzed under my skin. Once, when she passed behind my chair, her fingers brushed the back of it lightly. Another signal. Another push. When my wife excused herself to the bathroom, Mara crossed the room and placed a folded napkin in front of me, as if handing me an extra serviette. Her fingers grazed mine, warm and deliberate, and her eyes flicked briefly to the backyard door before she walked away. I unfolded the napkin beneath the table. 10 minutes. Behind the house. My pulse kicked. The humiliation of the evening was still raw, but now something else pulsed beneath the surface. Curiosity, anger, and a tension I couldn't quite name. Something electric that had started the moment Mara whispered to me. When 10 minutes passed, I rose quietly and slipped out the back door. The air was cool, crisp, sharp enough to cut through the leftover noise of the dinner. Mara was waiting in the shadows. She stepped toward me with a look that wasn't shock or pity. It was anger, the kind that had direction and purpose, the kind that meant whatever she was about to say wouldn't just change the night. It would change everything. Mara didn't speak at first. She just looked at me, not with the soft sympathy you'd give someone humiliated in public, but with a tightly reined anger that didn't seem aimed at me at all. Her arms were crossed, her breath visible in the cool night air, and the porch light behind her left half her face in shadow. It gave her an edge, something sharp and deliberate that made my pulse spike. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said quietly. "You whispered in my ear like you had a secret that could sink a ship," I answered. "How could I not?" She huffed a short breath, something like a humorless laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Good," she muttered, "because you need to hear this before things get worse." I leaned against the railing, trying to look more composed than I felt. The humiliation from earlier still clung to me like smoke, but Mara's presence cut through it. Her closeness, her intensity, the feeling that she was about to hand me a truth sharp enough to rip through the lies I'd been drowning in. "What did you find?" I asked. She took a step closer, lowering her voice instinctively, as if walls themselves had ears. "She's been preparing this meltdown for weeks," Mara said. "That outburst tonight? It wasn't emotional. It was rehearsed." The words landed heavy. "She wanted the room to see you as the villain," Mara continued, each word measured. "She's been telling her family you've been unstable lately." I blinked. "Unstable? Based on what?" "Based on the story she's been crafting," Mara said, taking another slow step toward me. "She told them you've been controlling, jealous, irrational, that you lash out for no reason." I know you don't." She cut me off with a sharpness that was almost protective. "I've known you for years. You're patient. Too patient with her." The way she said it, soft, restrained, almost intimate, made something low in my stomach twist. Mara had never spoken to me like that, not in all the years she'd been my wife's closest friend. She exhaled slowly, then brushed a lock of hair behind her ear, exposing the curve of her neck to the porch light. "She's not done either," Mara murmured. "She's planning to file for divorce soon, very soon, and she's setting everything up so she gets all the sympathy and all the assets." My mouth went dry. She would take everything? Mara met my eyes with a look I'd never seen from her before, pity mixed with anger. "Oh, she's aiming for more than everything. She wants the house, the savings, and she wants to paint you unstable enough that you don't even get to argue." A cold chill crept down my spine. "Why? Why would she go that far?" "Because she wants to win," Mara said, "and because she thinks she can." She paused then, studying my face as if preparing to drop the second blade. Her voice softened, almost reluctant. "There's more, and you're not going to like it." I let out a slow breath. "Just tell me." Mara stepped closer until only a foot separated us. I could feel her warmth against the cool night air, smell faint traces of perfume mixed with adrenaline. She looked around once more, making sure the yard was empty, then leaned in, close enough that her hair brushed my cheek. "She's been lying to her family for months," she whispered, "twisting stories, making you look like a monster so no one will be shocked when she leaves you." My jaw clenched. "What kind of stories?" Mara's lips tightened. "Stories about you being angry, unpredictable. She told her sister you threw things during arguments, told her mother you've grabbed her when she tried to walk away." Mara shook her head, eyes dark with disgust. "Complete lies. All of them." I stepped back, stunned. "I've never touched her in anger. Ever." "I know," Mara said quietly. "Which is why I came to you. Because she's planning to make it look like you have." She took out her phone and hesitated, as if deciding whether to cross a line. Then she handed it to me. Images filled the screen. Screenshots of my wife's private chats. Ugly things. Fabricated accusations. Plans. people comforting her because she'd painted me as some simmering threat. My stomach twisted. "This is insane," I whispered. "It's calculated," Mara corrected softly. "And she won't stop unless someone stops her first." I handed the phone back, my fingertips grazing Mara's. She didn't pull away. For a beat too long, we just stayed like that. Connected. Quiet. Heat humming between our hands in a way neither of us acknowledged but both felt. Finally, I spoke. "Why are you telling me all this, Mara?" Her eyes flicked to mine, steady, searching, intense enough to make my breath stall for half a second. "Because someone has to," she whispered, "and because I'm not going to let her destroy you." The words lingered in the cold air, warm and dangerous at the same time. And I realized then, whatever came next, Mara wasn't just a witness to my wife's lies. She was stepping onto my side of the battlefield. Mara didn't waste time. The moment she saw how shaken I was, she pulled her phone closer to her chest, took a breath like she was gathering courage, and said quietly, "You haven't seen the worst of it yet." Those words alone made my pulse spike. It wasn't just what she said, it was the way she said it. Low, controlled, like she'd been holding this truth in her mouth for too long and it was burning her tongue. "Show me," I said. She hesitated, not because she doubted me, but because she knew that once I saw it, there would be no going back. Then she stepped closer, close enough that I could see the faint tremble in her hand as she unlocked her phone and held it out to me. The first screenshot hit me like a punch, a message from my wife to one of her friends. "He's starting to slip. If I push a little harder, I can get the reaction I need." My throat tightened. Reaction for what? Mara touched my arm, barely, lightly, but enough to steady me. "Keep reading." Another text from my wife. "If he raises his voice or grabs my wrist even once, the counselor said it'll help my case." My stomach twisted. "I've never grabbed her." "I know," Mara said softly. "That's why she wants to provoke you." She swiped to the next screenshot. Same chat. Worse content. "I'll tell everyone he's been unstable for months. They'll believe me. They always do." Seeing the words in black and white felt like cold water being poured down my spine. I barely registered Mara's fingers brushing mine as she steadied the phone, just a warm touch against a chilling truth. "She planned this," I murmured. "Yes," Mara said. "Every detail." She opened the voice memos next. The first clip was short, just a few seconds long, but enough to make my jaw clench. It was my wife's voice, calm, collected, disturbingly calculated. "Once he snaps, I'll record it. He won't win anything after that." My hand tightened around the phone. Mara watched me carefully, eyes softening. "There's more. You need to hear it all." I nodded, and she opened the next recording. It was my wife again, this time speaking to someone with a softer tone, a tone she never used on me anymore. "Don't worry. The counselor said if I follow the plan, I can get the house and the savings. He even gave me the phrasing to use." I frowned. Who was she talking to? Mara exhaled. "Not who. Which?" I looked at her, confused. She stepped closer, so close her breath warmed the side of my jaw. She didn't act alone. She had help. "Help from who?" I asked. She swallowed, her throat tightening in a way that made my chest feel suddenly heavy. "The marriage counselor." I stared at her, stunned. "That doesn't make sense. He was supposed to help us." "He helped her," Mara said quietly. "Strategically, intentionally. He told her exactly what to say, how to exaggerate things, how to make you look like the unstable one. He encouraged her to push your buttons, to bait you, to document everything she could twist later." Her voice shook, not with fear, but with anger so tightly coiled, it changed the energy between us. "You're telling me he helped her destroy our marriage?" "No." Mara held my gaze, eyes burning with a mix of sorrow and fury. "I'm telling you he designed it." I looked away for a moment, trying to swallow the disbelief, the betrayal, the humiliation, all rising at once. Mara's fingers brushed my wrist lightly, warm, careful, grounding. "I didn't know who to tell," she whispered. "I didn't know if you'd believe me. But once I found the recordings, once I saw how far she was willing to go," she shook her head. "I couldn't let her ruin you." Her closeness stirred something complicated in my chest. Tension, gratitude, anger, attraction. Too many things tangled together. The air felt charged. "Why did you look into all this?" I asked, voice low. "Why not just stay out of it?" Mara hesitated again, long enough that I wondered if she'd walk away from the question. But she didn't. She met my eyes with a look that felt too honest, too raw. "Because I saw her hurting you," she said softly, "and no one else was going to stop her." Something in the way she said it, soft but fierce, hit deeper than I expected, as if she'd been watching from the sidelines for far longer than I realized. She took another step closer. "I have everything," she said. "Messages, plans, audio, evidence you didn't know existed." "And you're giving it to me?" I asked quietly. She nodded once, her expression unwavering. "All of it. But this isn't just about giving you the truth. It's about protecting you before she can twist everything." I stared at her, the weight of everything settling in my chest. "Why me?" I asked. Mara's breath trembled for half a second, barely noticeable but real. "Because you don't deserve to be destroyed by someone who forgot what love even looks like." A silence stretched between us, charged, heavy, intimate. Then Mara whispered, "And because this is only the beginning." The backyard felt colder after Mara's last words, as if the night itself leaned in to listen. I could still hear the faint laughter drifting from inside the house, but it sounded distant, wrong, too normal for what I now knew. Everything around me felt sharper, clearer, like my senses had kicked into overdrive. Mara stood in front of me, her phone held loosely at her side, her expression steady, but her eyes burning with something fierce, something protective. "So, what do you want to do?" she asked quietly. It wasn't a question delivered lightly. It wasn't a question with an easy answer either. For a moment, I just looked at her, really looked at her. The tension in her jaw, the way she stood as if she was preparing for a fight she'd been anticipating for months, the way she didn't flinch from my gaze. "What choice do I have?" I said finally. "She's building a case designed to destroy me." "You do have a choice," Mara said. "You can fight back, but not the way she expects." She stepped closer again, close enough that her breath mixed with mine. I didn't step away. Neither did she. Her voice dropped, steady and low. "You need to stop reacting," she whispered. "Stop letting her push you. That's what she wants. She needs you emotional so she can twist it." "And what do you want me to do?" I asked. Her eyes softened for just a moment. "I want you to stay calm, controlled. Let her think she's winning." She pulled her phone up again and tapped through files until she reached a folder at the top labeled Insurance. The name alone told me everything I needed to know. Inside were dozens of screenshots, recordings, message threads, more than she'd shown me earlier. She'd been collecting all of it for a long time. "Mara, this is enough to bury her," I murmured. She looked away, jaw tightening. I didn't plan for it to go this far, but when she started involving the counselor, when she began lying to her family, when she started talking about ruining your credibility, I couldn't watch anymore. Her voice cracked, not dramatically, but in the quiet, restrained way of someone who had held too many secrets for too long. I took a breath, the decision forming inside me with the slow inevitability of gravity. "Then we use it." Mara looked up immediately, and something like relief flickered across her face. "We," she repeated, the word almost a whisper. "Yes," I said. "If she's planning to destroy me, I'm not doing this alone. Not anymore." Mara stepped even closer, close enough that her shoulder brushed mine. The contact was light but warm, grounding, unexpectedly intimate. She held my gaze with a steadiness that made something deep in my chest shift. "Then we make a pact," she murmured. "You gather the legal side. I'll take the social side." I raised an eyebrow. Social side? Her mouth curved, not quite a smile, but something sharp. "Your wife has built her entire identity around looking like the wounded victim to everyone around her. The perfect daughter, the misunderstood wife, the fragile soul who's married to a supposedly volatile man. That's the story she wants," I said bitterly. Mara nodded. "And I'm going to make sure it collapses around her." Before I could ask how, she kept going. "I know her friends," she said. "I know her co-workers. I know what stories she tells each of them, and I know exactly where the cracks already are. While you prepare legally, I'll plant doubts. Quiet ones, small ones, nothing inflammatory, just enough to make people start questioning her narrative. And she won't suspect you? Not even a little." Mara's voice carried a cold confidence. "She trusts me. Too much." The weight of that truth settled between us. Mara wasn't just giving me evidence. She was putting herself in the line of fire, too. I felt the urge to step closer, not out of desire, though the tension between us hummed like a wire, but out of something deeper. Gratitude, protective instinct, the need to acknowledge the magnitude of what she was risking. "Mara," I said quietly, "you don't have to do this." She inhaled sharply, her eyes locking onto mine with a sudden intensity that held me still. "I do," she whispered, "because if I don't, she'll destroy you, and I won't let that happen." For a long, quiet moment, neither of us moved. Her face was inches from mine, her expression fierce and vulnerable all at once. The night air wrapped around us, cool against overheated skin. Then she stepped back, just slightly, enough to break the spell without shattering it. "So here's how we do this," she said, clearing her throat. "You go home tonight and act normal, calm, maybe even apologetic. She'll think she succeeded in breaking you. It'll make her arrogant and sloppy." "And you?" I asked. "I'll go back inside," she said. "I'll comfort her. I'll pretend to take her side. She'll talk. She always talks too much when she thinks someone's on her team." Mara turned toward the house, but before she walked away, she looked back, eyes soft, voice low. "We're in this together now," she said. "No more letting her script your life." The porch light flickered, casting her in a glow that felt almost cinematic. Strong, determined, beautiful in a way I hadn't let myself notice until tonight. And as I watched her disappear inside, I realized something chilling. My wife thought I was isolated. She thought she'd already won. She thought I'd crumble. But she had no idea her closest friend had just switched sides. Walking back into the house felt like stepping onto a stage I hadn't agreed to perform on. Conversations had restarted, but I could feel the undercurrent. People whispering, glancing, pretending they weren't dissecting my wife's earlier explosion. Her laughter floated from the kitchen, too bright, too fast, the sound of someone who wanted everyone to forget she'd just accused her husband of ruining her life. I let her see me enter, on purpose. I let her read the tired slump of my shoulders, the calm in my expression, the quiet resignation. She wanted me to look broken? Fine. I'd give her the version she expected to see. Her eyes lit with triumph for a brief second, before she buried it beneath a mask of concern. "Can we talk?" she asked, reaching for my arm with a gentle touch that might have fooled someone else. "Later," I said softly. "Let's just try to enjoy the night." The confusion on her face was immediate. She'd expected anger. She'd expected a fight she could provoke. The silence I gave her instead threw her off balance. Good. Let her wobble. Let her wonder. She nodded slowly and forced a smile. "Okay." I walked past her, feeling her stare burn into my back. She didn't realize she'd just witnessed the first shift in power, me refusing the bait, and she needed me to take the bait. Her entire plan depended on it. Across the room, Mara caught my eye. She was talking with my wife's cousin, leaning casually against the counter, but her gaze lingered on me for a heartbeat too long. A silent check-in. A question. A promise. I nodded once. She nodded back. The pact was alive and moving. As the night crawled on, I played my role flawlessly. Calm, helpful, composed. I refilled drinks, carried dishes, even cracked a few small jokes with her uncles. My wife watched me like she was waiting for the punchline, waiting for me to snap or sulk or storm out again. But every time she tried to steer me into a corner conversation, I gently shifted away. She was like a predator who'd suddenly realized the trap she set wasn't catching anything. Meanwhile, Mara drifted between groups, weaving herself into small conversations, planting subtle seeds the way she promised she would. She didn't throw accusations or start rumors. No, she was far smarter than that. She let concern coat her voice in the right moments, let her eyebrows tighten just slightly as she listened, let a carefully chosen phrase soften her expression. Is she doing okay lately? I've noticed she seems overwhelmed. I worry she's under too much pressure. I hope she's being honest with herself about things. Nothing incriminating, nothing damaging, just gentle whispers that made people look at my wife with fresh eyes, eyes no longer clouded by her theatrics. Hours later, when the gathering finally thinned and people began drifting out the door, my wife cornered me in the hallway. Her perfume hit me first, sweet and sharp, but it didn't stir anything in me anymore, not after what I'd learned. "You're being weird," she said quietly, studying me with narrowed eyes. "You're too calm." I let my gaze soften. "I just want us to stop fighting." She blinked, startled by the softness. "That's good," she said slowly. "That's really good. I want that too." She touched my chest with her fingertips, gently, almost playfully. A touch meant to disarm. Once it might have worked. Tonight it only reminded me how skilled she was at performance. "You should come to bed early," she murmured. "We can talk." I stepped back just a fraction, which she noticed, and said, "Maybe." Her face flickered with confusion, then irritation. Before she could press further, Mara appeared behind her. "Hey," Mara said with an easy smile. "Can I steal her for a second? I need opinions on something." My wife melted at the attention. "Of course. What's up?" Mara gave me a passing glance that held more intensity than her tone. When she led my wife away, her fingers lightly brushed mine, so subtle it could have been accidental, but it sent a warm jolt through me anyway. Later that night, when we'd finally left the party and were driving home, my wife rambled about how she probably overreacted earlier and how she just wants us to reconnect. Her voice was soft, as if she were comforting herself more than me. I offered quiet nods, small smiles, nothing more. She needed to believe the storm she created had passed. We pulled into our driveway, and she leaned toward me, her eyes searching mine with forced tenderness. "Thank you for being patient with me," she whispered. I let my fingers brush her cheek gently, just enough to keep her illusions intact. "Of course," I said. But inside, I felt nothing for her except a growing, steady resolve. When she fell asleep hours later, I stepped out onto the porch and checked my phone. One message from Mara. "It's working." She's slipping faster than I expected. "Be ready. The counselor's involved more deeply than I thought. I'll explain tomorrow." The door behind me creaked softly as I read her words, but the house remained still. The turning point had arrived. Not for my wife. For me. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. The next morning the house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. My wife moved around the kitchen in that overly gentle way she used when she wanted to pretend nothing was wrong. She hummed softly, made coffee, even put the mug in front of me with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was all an act, and for the first time, I could see every crack in it. "How'd you sleep?" she asked, brushing her hair over her shoulder in that rehearsed, effortless motion she used when she wanted to seem soft and approachable. "Well," I said calmly. "You?" She blinked, thrown off by how even my voice was. "Good. Better now that things are smoother between us. Her smile tightened. She was trying too hard, nervous, watching me too closely, waiting for a reaction she could twist into a story later. Good. Let her wait. I kissed her on the cheek before leaving for work, and I could practically feel her confusion lingering behind me. She had no idea that calm was the one thing she didn't want from me. On the way out of the driveway, I checked my phone. A message from Mara waited there, time-stamped 3 minutes earlier. Mara, I found something big. Really big. We need to meet. She didn't send details. She didn't need to. Mara knew how to hold tension without losing control. I met her that afternoon at a small park, hidden by tall trees and a worn gazebo no one ever used. Mara was already there, pacing with her arms crossed and her eyes locked on her phone. When she saw me, she exhaled in a rush. Not relief, but readiness. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "Try me." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Your wife met with the counselor last week. Alone." "That was scheduled," I said. "A follow-up." "No." Mara shook her head, eyes flashing with frustration. "This wasn't a follow-up. This was strategy planning." She handed me her phone. Text messages. A whole thread between my wife and the counselor, coded, vague, but clear enough once you knew what you were looking at. "Remember to document everything. Focus on his reactions. He needs to appear unstable before you file. I told you, don't confront him directly. Just push." My jaw tightened. He told her to bait me. "Worse," Mara said, stepping even closer. "He told her how." She took her phone back and opened a voice memo. It was the counselor's voice. Calm, soothing, professional. Only the words weren't professional at all. "If he raises his voice, don't respond. Look scared. That will be important later. If he tries to walk away during a fight, follow him. He might snap. Record him every chance you get. Trust me, it's necessary." A thickness settled in my chest. Not rage, clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. Mara watched me carefully, her expression unreadable. "They planned it together. Months of this. Pushing you, setting you up, waiting for you to break." "But I didn't," I whispered. Mara stepped even closer, her breath brushing my skin, warm and steady. "No," she said quietly. "You didn't." And that ruined their entire plan. Her hand hovered near mine, not touching but close enough that I could feel the heat of her fingers. The space between us hummed with something that wasn't just anger or teamwork, something more electric, something dangerous and undeniable. "You need to start documenting everything," she said. "Now. Every conversation. Every attempt she makes to provoke you. Every shift in her behavior." "I've already started," I said. "You were right. She's trying too hard. And I'll handle the rest." Mara straightened, gathering her composure. "I've already planted whispers in her circles. People are watching her now. She doesn't know it yet, but she's tearing her own image apart." "She's sloppy," I agreed. "She's desperate," Mara corrected. "And desperate people make mistakes." Before I could respond, Mara reached out and gently adjusted the collar of my shirt, a small, intimate gesture that lasted a second longer than necessary. Her fingertips lingered against my neck, warm and grounding. "You're doing good," she murmured. I should have stepped back. I didn't. The moment stretched, thick and charged, until she finally pulled her hand away, her expression shifting into something determined. "She's going to try to set up a big confrontation soon," Mara said. "She needs that emotional outburst to complete her story. Don't give it to her." "I won't," I said. "Good," she whispered. We walked to our cars separately, but the tension between us stayed threaded like a wire beneath the surface. And that night, everything Mara predicted came true. My wife tried everything: accusations, guilt, sudden tears, sudden anger. A broken glass she swore I knocked off the counter. I stayed calm. I documented everything, and with every attempt that failed, she became more frantic. Mara was right. She wasn't just losing control. She was exposing herself, and the counselor wasn't saving her. He was about to go down with her. The shift happened on a Thursday night, so subtly that if Mara hadn't warned me, I might have missed it. My wife was unusually sweet, almost glowing with a brittle kind of optimism that didn't match the tension simmering beneath her skin. She made dinner, lit candles, put on soft music, and touched my arm too often for it to feel natural. She wasn't being affectionate. She was preparing the stage. "Can we talk this weekend?" she asked, her voice syrupy sweet. "I think we really need some time together. Just us." Every instinct in me sharpened. She never wanted time, just us. Not anymore. "What kind of time?" I asked, letting the question hang innocently in the air. Her eyes flickered, barely, but enough to confirm what Mara had predicted. "Well, I booked us a session. With him." "The counselor?" I asked, keeping my face unreadable. "Yes," she said, smiling too wide. "He offered to see us privately, off the record. He said it might be the breakthrough we need." Breakthrough. Right. A breakthrough that would conveniently take place without witnesses, without forms, without anyone knowing what she planned to accuse me of. I swallowed the bitterness and nodded gently. "If you think it will help." Her smile brightened with triumph. She thought I'd fallen right into the trap. But what she didn't know was that someone else was already inside the trap with her. Someone she trusted far more than she trusted me. When she went upstairs to shower, I texted Mara. "Me. You were right. She wants to meet him privately this weekend." Mara. "Do not go." Me. "She'll know something's wrong if I refuse." Mara. "You won't refuse. You'll let her think you're coming. But we need to talk first. I found something new." Mara wanted to meet the next morning before work. She didn't say why, but I could guess from the shortness of her messages that whatever she'd discovered had sharpened the edge in her voice. When I arrived at our usual meeting spot, the old gazebo tucked away behind the park, Mara was already there, arms wrapped around herself despite the warm morning. She paced in small, tense circles, stopping only when she heard my footsteps. "Tell me everything," I said. She took a shaky breath and held up her phone. "She messaged him, last night, after you went to bed." "About what?" Mara unlocked the screen and handed it to me. "I need him emotional this weekend. You said this will work if he raises his voice, right? I'll push him. I can get him to lose his temper. It's easy. If he tries to walk out, I'll follow him. I'll cry. I'll make it dramatic. Just tell me exactly what to say to get the reaction you need." My stomach twisted, but the cold satisfaction settled deeper. "What did he tell her to do?" I asked. Mara swiped to the next message. The counselor's response was short, precise, and chilling. "Repeat the same accusation. 3 times. Don't let him speak. That usually triggers frustration. Then step closer. He'll feel cornered. If he doesn't raise his voice, pretend to be scared. That works too. Record everything." I exhaled slowly, the anger inside me turning razor sharp. Mara stepped closer, her eyes searching mine. "You can't let her corner you. You can't let him manipulate the narrative. You need to stay 3 steps ahead." "I intend to," I said. "No," she said softly. "We intend to." We were standing close again. Too close. Her voice had dropped, her gaze locked on mine, her breath brushing my skin. The air between us felt charged, pulled tight by something neither of us dared acknowledge out loud. She reached out and touched my wrist. Warm, steady, grounding. "Listen to me," she whispered. "This weekend isn't a session. It's a setup. They want you to snap, or they want you to look like you might. They don't care if it's real." "Then I'll give them nothing," I said. "Good," she murmured, her hand slipping away slowly, but not before it lingered a moment longer than necessary. The next day, everything unraveled exactly as she predicted. On Saturday morning, my wife woke up early, dressed carefully, applied makeup with shaky precision, and said with a bright smile, "Ready?" "Of course," I said. She expected tension, a fight, hesitation. She got none of it. And that alone rattled her. When we arrived at the counselor's office, a private building on the edge of town. She reached for my hand. Not out of affection, but because she wanted witnesses to see us walk in together, peaceful and unified. But the parking lot was empty. The counselor wasn't there. She checked her phone, confusion turning quickly to frustration. He said 10 o'clock. Why isn't he here? Before she could spiral, her phone buzzed. She opened the message, read it, and immediately stiffened. Delayed. Start without me. Talk. Record your feelings. Her eyes widened. Mine didn't. And somewhere, miles away, Mara was watching all of this unfold in real time. She had intercepted a thread last night proving the counselor told her to get the recording started before he arrived, preferably during a spontaneous emotional moment. My wife looked at me, swallowing hard, trying to find the script she'd planned to follow. But I didn't play along. Not once. Not even when she stepped closer. Not even when she repeated her accusation. Not even when she pretended to cry. Not even when she raised her voice to bait mine. I stayed calm, cold, controlled, and with every failed attempt, she grew more frantic, until her mask cracked completely. She snapped. She shouted. She slammed her hand on the table. She said things she should never have said. Things I recorded quietly with my phone in my pocket. Mara was right. The setup backfired, spectacularly, and neither she nor the counselor had any idea that the disaster had already begun. By Monday morning, the counselor's plan had collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance, and he didn't even realize it yet. My wife spent the rest of the weekend spiraling after her failed session, scrambling for explanations she couldn't articulate, shifting between rage and panic like someone trying to play a role they no longer understood. But I stayed calm. I stayed steady. And the calmer I became, the more frantic she grew. Sunday night she tried to corner me in the hallway, speaking too fast, her hands shaking slightly. I don't know what you want from me anymore. You're acting so strange. Why won't you engage with me? Because I don't want to fight, I said evenly. That made her flinch. She needed a fight. Without one, the narrative she'd built had nothing to stand on. And by Monday at 8:17 a.m., I had exactly what I needed. I stepped into my lawyer's office with a folder so thick it snapped the clasp on my bag. He raised his eyebrows when he saw the stack of evidence I placed on his desk. Screenshots, voice recordings, messages between my wife and the counselor, timestamps, logs, everything Mara and I had been gathering. This is extensive, he murmured, flipping through the first pages. It's all real, I said. Every bit of it. He studied a transcript where the counselor explicitly told my wife to provoke me. Then another where she bragged about getting testimony ready. Then a third where she outlined how to make me look unstable. He closed the folder slowly. We file today. Today? I asked. He nodded once. Before she does. With this evidence, we can claim manipulation, coordinated malign intent, and professional misconduct on the counselor's part. You'll look calm, rational, prepared. She'll look reckless, dishonest, desperate. It was exactly the position Mara had told me we needed. By noon, the divorce packet was drafted. Clean. Devastating. A single document capable of turning my wife's entire strategy to ash. By 1 o'clock, the filing was official. And by 2, my wife received the packet via email. I was standing in the doorway when she opened her laptop and saw it. Her face drained in real time. Her lips parted, then moved with no sound coming out. Her eyes darted across each page with frantic fear, her breathing turning shallow. She looked like someone watching their own house burn from the inside. What is this?" she whispered. "A divorce filing," I said. No, you can't file first. You can't just blindside me like this." "You did," I said calmly. "I'm simply responding." "That's not the same," she shouted. "You can't accuse me of lying or manipulating." "It's not an accusation," I said, my voice steady. "It's evidence." She froze. Then her eyes landed on the screenshots, the messages, the recordings. Her hand shot to her mouth. How did you... "You weren't careful," I said. And you trusted the wrong person. Her chest rose sharply. Mara, she whispered, the betrayal cracking through her voice like a snapped wire. She wasn't the one lying, I said. My wife's phone buzzed, and she grabbed it instinctively. When she saw the caller ID, Mom, her face fell further. She answered anyway. What? Mom, No, I didn't. That's not... She stopped, swallowed. Where did you hear that? Her mother was shouting. I could hear every word through the receiver. Mara's slow social unraveling had reached the finish line. Tears welled in my wife's eyes, not out of guilt, but because she realized the story she'd carefully built had been punctured from every angle. She hung up and turned on me with wild, shaking fury. You ruined everything. I didn't ruin anything, I said softly. You did. She stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. Across the city, another collapse was unfolding. Mara texted me right then. Mara, his family knows. They heard the recordings. They're livid. The counselor is in complete denial. They're considering reporting him to the board. Me. And you? Are you okay? Mara, I will be. Knowing he won't hurt anyone else like this, it's enough for now. Later that evening, Mara sent me a longer message, a voice memo. Her voice was steady, but under it was a layer of emotion she wasn't hiding anymore. It's done. Your wife's family confronted her. People are talking. And the counselor, he's panicking. I recorded him admitting he may have overstepped. We've got him. We've got her. It's over. I listened twice. Not because I needed clarity, but because her voice had become the only steady thing in the chaos. That night, my wife didn't come out of the bedroom. I didn't check on her. I sat in the living room where it was quiet, lit only by a single lamp and the soft hum of a fan. For the first time in months, possibly years, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. The counselor was about to face professional consequences he'd never anticipated. My wife had run out of lies. The narrative she'd built had imploded. The collapse was complete. And Mara was the one who had stood beside me through every crack, every reveal, every truth. She was the reason everything finally made sense. The house felt haunted the next morning, not by ghosts, but by the silence that follows a truth too loud to ignore. My wife didn't come downstairs. She didn't text. She didn't scream or apologize or pretend. She just hid behind a closed door, probably trying to gather the shattered pieces of the story she'd lived in for months. I didn't check on her. I didn't need to. The collapse had done exactly what it needed to do. While I made coffee, my phone buzzed. Mara, can we talk? It's important. Something in those 3 words felt heavier than the entire folder of evidence I'd filed. I replied immediately, and she sent a location, an empty parking lot behind an old bookstore we used to pass on double dates years ago. When I arrived, she was leaning against her car, arms folded tightly, staring at the pavement like it held answers she didn't want. Her shoulders were tense. Her hair looked slightly wind-tossed, like she'd been running her hands through it too often. She didn't look like the fierce strategist who dismantled a counselor and a manipulator in the same week. She looked conflicted. She looked like someone who was terrified of the truth she needed to tell. When she heard my footsteps, she straightened, but she didn't look at me right away. Is everything okay? I asked. No, she said quietly, but it needs to be said. Her voice shook, not with fear of me, but with fear of what she was about to admit. That alone made my chest tighten. Mara, I said gently, whatever it is, just tell me. She took a deep breath, lifted her eyes, and met mine with a vulnerability so raw it almost felt like a physical force. I didn't help you out of kindness, she whispered. Not just kindness. I didn't speak. I let her continue. I didn't just step in because she was lying, or because the counselor was manipulating everything. Mara swallowed hard. I stepped in because I've loved you for a long time. The words hung in the air, fragile, trembling, dangerous. My breath caught in my throat. She kept going, rushing now as if afraid she'd lose her nerve if she paused. Years before you married her, I felt something. And I told myself it was stupid. I told myself you were off limits, that she was my best friend, that it didn't matter. She laughed softly, bitterly. But it did, and I buried it. I became the best friend. I watched you fall in love with her. I watched you marry her. And I tried to be happy for both of you. I felt the ground tilt beneath me. She continued, her voice soft but steady. When the marriage started changing, when she started lying and twisting things, I saw it. I saw what she was doing to you. And at first, I stayed out of it because I didn't want to cross a line I couldn't uncross. But you did, I said quietly. She nodded, her eyes glistening. Yes, because watching her hurt you was worse than crossing that line. And when I found out she was planning to destroy you in court, with him helping her, something snapped in me. I couldn't stay neutral anymore. She stepped closer, slowly, cautiously. I didn't expose her just to protect you. I exposed her because I couldn't stand the thought of her winning, of her ruining you, of her walking away with everything while you took the blame. Mara, I whispered. I know, she said quickly, lifting a hand. I know I should have told you sooner. I know my motives weren't pure, but I swear to you, I never wanted to manipulate you. I never wanted to hurt you. I just needed to stop her before she destroyed the one person She hesitated. The last word hovered between us, trembling, cared about. The confession hit harder than any betrayal I'd uncovered these past weeks, because it wasn't a trick. It wasn't manipulation. It wasn't a calculated move in our revenge. It was the truth she had been choking on for years. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The parking lot was silent except for our breathing and the faint hum of traffic beyond the trees. When did you start collecting evidence? I finally asked. She looked down. Before you knew anything was wrong, before she started her meltdown, before she rehearsed her lines. She exhaled shakily. I saw the signs. I saw the messages. And I couldn't watch you get blindsided. So you watched everything fall apart, I said, and waited for the moment to tell me. She winced. I'm not proud of that. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Her eyes lifted again, soft, vulnerable, aching. Because I didn't want you to think I was doing all of this just to have you. I didn't want to be the villain in your story. I stepped closer, closer than I should have. You're not the villain, Mara. You don't know that, she whispered. I do, I said. Because you told me the truth, and you're the only one who did. A tear slid down her cheek, and she wiped it quickly, almost angrily. I never wanted you to find out like this. And I never expected to find out at all, I admitted. For a moment, we stood inches apart, breathing the same air, sharing the same tension, feeling the weight of the truth settling between us like something fragile and undeniable. She broke the silence first. What happens now? She whispered. I didn't answer immediately, not because I didn't know, but because for the first time in a very long time, I had more than one path in front of me, and none of them terrified me. The world didn't explode after Mara's confession. It didn't shatter or twist or turn cinematic. Instead, everything settled into a stillness so heavy it felt like the air itself was waiting for my response. She stood in front of me, shoulders tense, eyes searching mine for some sign of rejection or anger or confusion. But I didn't feel any of those things. I felt clarity, a strange, unexpected calm that came not from certainty, but from finally understanding the truth behind the person who'd been standing beside me through the fire. Mara, I said softly, look at me. She lifted her eyes slowly, cautiously, like she was afraid of what she might see. You didn't manipulate me, I said. You helped me survive something I didn't even know was happening. Her breath hitched. Even if my reasons were complicated? They were human, I said. Complicated is still honest. For the first time since she'd arrived, something in her posture loosened, a small, almost fragile relief. She didn't step closer, didn't reach for me, didn't try to push the moment into something it wasn't. She just breathed, steadying herself. "What happens now?" she whispered again. I let my eyes wander past her, toward the quiet horizon behind the bookstore. The sky was dimming, soft gold fading into blue, the kind of transition that didn't make a sound. A fitting backdrop for what felt like the aftermath of a war. "I don't know," I admitted, and maybe that's the first honest thing I've said in a long time. She gave a soft, almost sad laugh. "I can accept that." For a moment, neither of us moved. There was no need. The silence between us wasn't tense anymore. It was full of possibilities neither of us needed to name. But eventually, I stepped forward, just enough to close the gap between us. Not touching, not claiming, not promising, just standing beside her instead of across from her. "Right now," I said, "I need time to think, to breathe, to rebuild without having to look over my shoulder." She nodded, her expression softening with a warmth I didn't deserve but didn't reject. "I figured you'd say that." "And you?" I asked gently. She looked down at her hands, then at me. "I'm stepping back. Not because I regret anything, I don't, but because you deserve space to decide what your life looks like without pressure from anyone, including me." The maturity in that answer, quiet, steady, selfless, hit harder than any confession she'd made before. "What about us?" I asked, the word heavier than it should have been. Mara swallowed, then met my eyes with a gaze that felt like the most honest thing she'd ever shown me. "If something is meant to exist between us, it won't be born from chaos. It'll come after the dust settles, after you're whole again, after I am too." I nodded slowly. "I respect that, more than you know." A soft breeze drifted through the lot, lifting her hair gently. She brushed it behind her ear, then stepped closer, not enough to touch, but enough that I could feel her warmth through the cool evening air. "I didn't save you because I wanted you for myself," she said. "I saved you because she forgot who you are, and I couldn't watch that happen." Those words stayed with me long after she turned to leave. She paused at her car door, hand resting on the handle, and looked back at me one last time. Her smile wasn't hopeful or expectant. It was soft, steady, grounded in something deeper than desire. "I wanted you safe," she said. "That's all." Then she left, her taillights fading into the dusky street, until there was nothing left but silence. When I returned home, the house felt different, lighter, emptier, clearer. My wife's bags were gone from the hallway. A note sat on the counter, full of excuses, half apologies, and lines about how she never intended for things to go this far. I didn't read it twice. The divorce proceeded quickly, faster than anyone expected. With the evidence in place, she lost the house, most of the savings, and every ounce of credibility she'd weaponized. Her family pulled away, friends distanced themselves. The counselor faced professional consequences, investigations, hearings, potential loss of license. The elaborate maze they built together had collapsed the moment sunlight hit it. And me? I found myself waking up in a quiet house that didn't feel hostile anymore. I began rebuilding, slowly, carefully, making my own meals, opening windows to let air in, rearranging furniture until the place finally felt like mine, instead of a stage set for her manipulation. Every once in a while, Mara texted, never intrusive, never heavy, just enough to remind me she was there without stepping over my boundaries. And with each message, I realized something. For the first time in years, someone in my life was telling the truth, not just to me, but about me. One night, weeks later, as I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and the cool breeze brushing past my shoulders, my phone buzzed. A single message from Mara. "I hope today felt lighter than yesterday." I typed back, "It did, thanks to you." She didn't reply right away. When she finally did, it was simple. Good. That's all I wanted. I set the phone down and leaned back, letting the quiet settle over me. No drama, no manipulation, no performance. Just calm, just clarity, just the faint possibility of something new, something honest, waiting on the horizon. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel afraid of what came next. I felt ready,